Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to officially call the meeting to order. Ms. Ramirez, please confirm the quorum.
Yes, we have Trustee Dr. Mackey, we have Trustee Steen, we have Vice Chair Romero, and yourself, ma'am, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask David Ramirez to provide the safety message, invocation, and pledge of allegiance. Before we go there, the meeting officially started at 1 o'clock. Mr. Ramirez, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair Gonzalez and CPS Energy Board of Trustees. Good afternoon. For our evacuation procedures, we want to review these so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exiting out of the boardroom to the outside. If that door is blocked, use the back door. Verbally alert others in the room and evacuate. Then move to the main visitor parking lot in front of our building or the AT&T parking lot over the McCullough and Brooklyn Riverwalk bridges. In the event of a situation like this, our security team will be monitoring the situation and will notify the appropriate emergency services and team members. We also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. As always, safety is a top priority at CPS Energy, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to be ready and ensure that we are always prepared. I would invite everyone to stand for our invocation at this time. Lord, we are thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, and its challenges. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing important responsibilities. We ask that you would guide our thoughts and our actions so that we may have a successful meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. Help us to accomplish our goals while displaying your character. Help us to do good, to be honest, to serve others, and to fulfill our obligations to our community. We pray these things in your name. Amen. Now please join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Now we're moving on to item number 3, which is public comments. Ms. Natalia Lopez, please proceed with the public comments portion.
Yes, ma'am. Public comment provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on any of this meeting's posted agenda items. We'll invite pre-registered speakers to speak, and they may only address the board on CPS Energy-related business listed on the posted agenda. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization or group they represent, and the agenda item they're going to speak about. For this meeting, we have 3 in-person speakers. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. Thomas, will you please cue the timer? Our first speaker is Henrietta LaGrange, followed by Alan Montemayor.
Thank you, and good afternoon, and it's an honor for me to be here today. And I didn't type anything today because God gave me a message, extemporaneous, speak from the heart. And I am speaking from the heart, not only to the board, but people in our listening area and all the CPS employees. My main function today is to appreciate CPS's new leadership. I take time, and I probably spend more gas than anybody else in San Antonio, and stop and appreciate all the workers, because I feel like that's the bigger voice, is the employees, because the employees know me and they will tell me. And I love what they're telling me. They're telling me they love the growth of CPS Energy under the female boards, Janie Gonzalez and Dr. Francine Romero. And we will never forget CEO Rudy Garza. Rudy, I don't know how tall you're going to get, but they have you pretty tall. They think you're taller than David Robinson, more than 7 feet tall. And Rudy, don't ever go gray on me, okay? So, take care of that, because I know that the workers are trying to make it stress-free for you. They feel that they can work for you better, and they really love the board as it stands now. And guess what? I love you all too. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Alan Montemayor, followed by Darby Riley.
Good afternoon. I'm Alan Montemayor, Chair of the Alamo Group of the Sierra Club. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak to you today. I attended the RAC meeting last week. You guys are starting to make some great progress with RAC. One of the things I was a little bit upset about was the time frame that all of this is occurring in. In particular, the rollout of the community solar was not listed to begin taking place for 3 to 6 months. And I understand that 3 to 6 months is the actual, just the RFP for that. So it will be many, many months before we actually begin to sign up people for community solar once again. It's my understanding that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are waiting for community solar. And I believe it can be a force for positive community change, particularly for those that are struggling to pay their bill. If we can figure out a creative way to use some of the federal funds to bring community solar to those people, to give them some bill relief, that would be a fantastic thing. I do understand that the fiscal constraints that CPS Energy operates under. I do understand the need to address the poorest in our community and with social justice and environmental justice. But there's an impending doom coming over our city, and that is climate change. And those very people that can least afford to pay these bills are going to be very adversely affected the quickest and the worst by climate change, by hotter temperatures, by severe weather, et cetera. So anything we can do to move that agenda forward quicker and really engender a sense of urgency on the board here, and indeed in all of the CPS Energy employees, to move forwards with these cleaner technologies that are going to be a benefit to us all. Anything we can do to move that forward quicker is going to be helpful. I understand that the waiting period for rooftop solar to get CPS Energy to do the hookups has, time's up. It's gone down. Thank you for that. It was months and now it's weeks, so thank you. But also let's accelerate getting rid of coal and moving away from natural gas in all efforts. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our final speaker is Darby Riley.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I'm Darby Riley. I'm a business and residential customer of CPS Energy. Presently, CPS Energy and the City of San Antonio have a disincentive to promote efficiency and conservation because doing so reduces the revenues necessary to sustain their operations. Recently, Attorney Shana Ramirez presented rate decoupling at the Rate Advisory Committee. A really good presentation about how this works. And I recommend it to the board. Decoupling would allow the utility to pay its bills and make its necessary additional profits or income while reducing the public's consumption of fuel. Decoupled rates are set to reward lower consumption rather than higher consumption. Decoupling separates fuel sales from profits. Decoupled rates are set to guarantee the necessary return of the utility to the utility and its owner. The utility could promote retrofitting and distributed solar energy to households and businesses, but the overall rates would maintain revenues. Presently, finances get in the way of the city's fulfilling its promise to be a world leader in the transition to clean energy. Paula Gold Williams often said conservation costs money. Decoupling proves that conservation does not have to cost money. The implementation of decoupled rates is a complex matter. Utilities in 2/3 of the states have adopted it. CPS Energy should consult with experts to determine how decoupling could work here. Starting with the study makes sense. Our community has nothing to lose by such a study. Thank you for your service and for considering this.
Thank you for your input. Next, we have Ms. Melissa Sorolla, who will be providing a summary of the public input session held on April 4th.
Good afternoon. I'll try to keep mine at 2 minutes, too. As you know, we've been working really hard to increase awareness, not only for ways that people can give public input, but the opportunities as well. And Natalia made a good point. The public input today is based off agenda items, but working with our chair, we've identified quarterly public input sessions where the community can come in the afternoons to give input on any topic. We held our first event on April the 4th, and I was just going to give a really quick recap of that. There were 6 customers who provided in-person comment during the evening session. Additionally, we sent out an email blast to more than 400,000 people, and as a result of that, we received 36 comments that we are going to package up for you all as well. I will say 8 of those comments were actually questions. So working with our customer strategy team, we're going to be sure that we resolve those for our customers. We are, as I mentioned, we're going to package those up to you, but just some insight, 9 of those emails were related to affordability, 9 were related to reliability, and then we received some other emails about electric vehicles and customer service. We also reviewed the customer sentiment from those emails, and I will tell you, and we self did that. There was 36, so we could do that ourselves. 2 were positive, 24 we considered neutral, and 10 we would consider negative just based on comments that were made. Our next evening public input session will be from 5:30 to 6:30 on Monday, June 26th. We are also identifying other ways to create awareness for this. As I mentioned, we have more than 400,000 emails, but we're going to send a postcard to those customers that we don't have their emails for in April so that we can build up that list. Also, in all customer bills in May, we're going to put all of the dates for these board meetings and the public input sessions and the RAC meetings as well so that people know they have those opportunities to give comment. We're also going to be launching an online pilot to give public input in June, so we'll make sure you all have that information as well. As I mentioned, we'll package all the comments and questions, and we'll send those to you so you can see them. Be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. The next item on the agenda is Chairman's remarks. So on that note, that's okay. It happens to me too. I know there's a phone ringing in the audience. No problem. So on that note, again, I want to thank those individuals and colleagues who participated in our first quarterly public input session that took place, as mentioned, in April. And so the whole purpose of the quarterly public evening input is primarily we heard you loud and clear. There are many individuals who may not be able to take time off due to work or because they're retired. Whatever the case may be, again, it's just another avenue for us to engage with you. And so again, we really believe in public input. So please make sure you participate. The next session, as mentioned, will be June 26, 2023. Please, again, register with time online. Again, the evening public input session will take place between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m., and we will have trustees in attendance. As we continue to move forward, we will continue to find many ways to engage with you, whether it's in person or online or again through public meetings. Please visit our website. There's so many different ways that you can stay engaged. We list an array of different ways you can participate with us throughout the whole year. I really also want to talk today a little bit about our supply chain disruption. It's not a secret that the pandemic really disrupted supply chain, and CPS is not unique to this disruption. Like many utilities across the United States, we're facing material and supply shortages to support the growth in our community. As you know, we have re-examined and implemented a new process that allows customers to partially energize a project. This allows the developer to potentially jumpstart a development. In situations where not all transformers are available, we can utilize transformers that we have received, and for applicable projects, we can install a limited amount of transformers in order to energize a few lots, allowing the builder to begin selling lots and constructing homes. We continue to ensure some construction and safety standards are in place, but this offers some of our customers additional flexibility rather than our normal practice of energizing an entire subdivision all at once. Our team is, again, we're working ongoing with our customers to find innovative ways to help meet our customers' needs. It is vital that we ensure a fair approach to significant growth we're experiencing. We do not provide exceptions to ensure consistent treatment of all developers. I want to stress we are being fair in this process. Our supply chain team is constantly working to identify new vendors, brokers, and manufacturers. And we welcome, again, small business and large businesses that are out there. We welcome any leads to include our citizens that have the potential to help us provide additional materials faster. We will continue to listen to you, we will continue to work with you, and we will continue to re-examine the strategies to meet supply chain deficits. Again, on April the 14th, there was a wonderful article, a blog that's available via our website. It's titled CPS Energy Negates the Transformer Grid Law to Meet San Antonio's Housing Boom. Again, it's on our website. You can visit us at www.cps.com. I'm going to take a little breather here. There's a lot to announce. There's a lot going on. And as you can tell, Fiesta is underway, Fiesta 23, and I want to do a plug-in for VIA. I think it's important for you to be safe out there. VIA Park and Ride is one of the most affordable ways to enjoy Fiesta this season. So please leverage VIA Park and Ride. And then in closing, I really want to thank the CPS key personnel and the linemen that really worked this weekend as we again experienced some extreme weather. And so I want to thank the families also who are part of supporting the men and women who put extra hours over the weekend to meet the needs of our citizens. So again, those are the chairman's remarks. And on that note, I want to go ahead and move to the next item on the agenda, which is the executive agenda. I'm sorry, real quick. We cannot move forward until we hear from Dr. Romero on RAC.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the RAC met last Thursday, and I apologize to RAC members. These meetings are at the only time where I just cannot be there when I teach my class. The semester is ending, though, so I will be at all future meetings, and I'm trying to watch them online. I constantly get interrupted, but I'm trying to watch them online. So this is, again, the last piece of the RAC mission, at least for right now. And I think Chair Williams is doing a really good job of wrangling what is turning out to, I think, be the most difficult topic to get a handle on, which is affordability. And so he has continuously put this forward as a triangle, with the three parts of the triangle being bill relief or rate structure, which they've already discussed. Conservation was discussed a lot, especially by Ana Lozano at the last meeting. So moving forward with this, and RAC hopes to have the final recommendations to us by July, if not sooner. Thank you.
And before we move on to item number 6, does anybody have any feedbacks or comments regarding the chair's remarks or the rate advisory committee report? Okay, all righty, moving along to item number 6, which is the consent agenda. The following items will be approved, and that is A, payment to the city of San Antonio for March 2023. And there B would be procurement items, and we have no procurement items to vote on today.
Move to approve item A.
Is there a second?
Second.
Does the board have any further discussions before we vote? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. We now will move on to item agenda 7, committee reports. In lieu of reading the committee reports out loud, the following reports were available in your board book for your review. Audit and Finance Committee held on March the 2nd. Employee Benefit Oversight Committee held on March 23rd. Technology Resilience Committee held on March the 8th. And the Personnel Committee held on April 19th.
I move that we approve the committee reports as stated, and there be in the minutes of the board agenda. Thank you.
Is there a second?
There's no need to vote, ma'am.
Okay, no need to vote. Does the board have any comments or questions? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We will now move to item number 8, annual audited financial statements. Mr. David Ramirez, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair Gonzalez and CPS Energy Board. This afternoon, we have our external financial auditors here, KPMG, and we also have the partner from the subcontractor firm, Christopher Carmona. They will be presenting the results of our annual audit of financial statements. Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us today. No better way to kick off Fiesta Week and the parade tonight, right, than a presentation from KPMG. I have with me today our subcontracting partner, Chris Carmona. I believe he just stepped out. Oh, he's walking back in. He's been a great partner with us. He's from the firm Shriver, Carmona and Associates. I have with us today also our lead audit manager, Mackenzie Rangel, and I also have Robert Nelson with me. Let's see if I can navigate these slides. All right, so our audit results overview, you will see that we have no outstanding matters as a result to our CPS Energy audits for fiscal year 2023. We will be discussing our auditor's report, which is on slide 9. We also have no uncorrected misstatements to report, no corrected misstatements to report. We have no deficiencies to note, and we have no other matters to discuss. It was a great year to have our second year audit. It was very efficient and very clean. Before we move on to our prepared remarks and the rest of the presentation, just want to thank the accounting and finance teams and the internal audit team for a successful audit. And with that, Rob.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the rest of the Board of Trustees. So we'll pick up on slide 2 of the presentation materials, and just wanted to take an opportunity to acknowledge some of the factors that help us to realize a more efficient and effective audit. So the cornerstone of the audit journey we've been on the last few years is really helping to inform ourselves of risk assessment, and that helps to right-size our audit procedures. So understanding the financial and operational risks that affect an organization and how can we effectively respond to those in our procedures. So KPMG has been investing in technology such as robotic process automation, data visualization tools that really help scale down the man effort. So as Caroline mentioned previously, that helps us to perform a more effective and efficient audit. And so moving on to slide 4. So what is really meant by performing a more efficient and effective audit? And would just like to acknowledge the 3 items to the left of the slide, which is standardization, automation, and centralization. So standardization helps us to develop an audit plan primarily by industry and then by certain specific types. So in this example, we develop industry blueprints for energy, natural resources, delving a layer further into utilities and then municipal-owned utilities. Automation, as we mentioned, is those technology tools that we're investing in. And then centralization is achieved through various centers of excellence. For example, we have an employee benefit plan, center of excellence, requires a specialized set of skills in knowledge, and by using a center of excellence, we're able to deploy those procedures much more efficiently. And so the output of these items really on the right is enhanced audit quality. So doing a better audit, making sure that we are understanding issues that are at top of mind for the industry, for the company, and really providing a better experience for the client as well. Okay. So moving on, would like to take a moment for cybersecurity considerations. So cybersecurity events are on the rise lately, and similar to the remarks made in the chairman's opening, COVID-19 really complicated a lot of these matters. So they have accelerated digital transformation in ways that can create additional risks, work at home, stay-at-home matters, the type of technology that's connected to an organization's network. This is something that the audit standards require us to acknowledge and consider within our audit. We do not perform audit procedures on your cybersecurity measures themselves. So this is a conversation that most boards and audit committees have, and we'd like to continue that throughout the period.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will be moving on with communications that we are required to have with you to those charged with governance. So this slide really just summarizes those communication matters that we are required to have. As Caroline mentioned, this year went very smoothly. We don't have any misstatements to report. There was no going concern matters or difficulties that we had with management. So a lot of these will be shown as not applicable. We'll go over a few items such as the auditor's report and any significant accounting policies and estimates that we reviewed during our audit. Again, no illegal acts or fraud that we identified. This is something that we are required to disclose to you guys. But our auditor's report, this slide just notes that there are certain items included in the financial statements that management discussion and analysis is included. This is not covered by our audit. Some significant accounting policies and practices. So this is for GASB Statement 96. So this is a new standard that was adopted by the company this year for subscription-based technology arrangements. This did not have a significant impact to the company this year. We did a great job working with management to really evaluate what the impact would be, and we did not determine there to be anything material or significant. Significant accounting estimates. The first one we would like to point out is investments based on fair value measurements. So there are various types of investments included that the company has that are disclosed in the financial statements. And so the way we audit them is we have specialists within our firm that are qualified to look at these types of investments and make sure that they're appropriately fair valued. And then the next accounting estimate that we include in our audit is the net pension liability. Same thing here, we have specialized people within our firm, teams that assist us in our audit with valuing these estimates. So this one is for the pension liability. I'll kick it back over to Rob. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll take us through the remainder of the significant accounting estimates, and then we just have a few slides before we wrap up. So continuing on with the net OPEB asset. So OPEB, the acronym for Other Post-Retirement Employee Benefits, similar audit approach and considerations to pension that McKinsey described. We do involve actuarial specialists to evaluate that actuarially determined liability, as well as perform various valuation procedures over the assets held by the plan. And so based on our procedures, we do believe that management's assumptions and judgments are complete and accurate and reasonably stated within the financial statements. And then finally, for these significant accounting estimates, we do have accounting for contingencies. So this is really a broad brush, and that can encompass anything from slip and fall litigation to broader matters, with uncertainties such as Winter Storm Uri. Could be both gain or loss contingency. So really, in performing our audit procedures, we obtain an understanding of the matter, make inquiries with various members of the organization, potentially general counsel, finance, accounting, and the like. And based on our procedures, we do believe that management has appropriately accounted for these in the financial statements. We are required to communicate certain group audit engagement considerations. So we do approach the overall audit of CPS Energy as a group audit engagement. That's including the component for the South Texas project. That is the nuclear plant that the company invests in. And it does obtain its own standalone audit, coincidentally also performed by KPMG. So we do provide instructions to that component team in Houston, and they report back to us as part of our audit. And likewise, the fiduciary financial statements are audited by other auditors. That's BDO, so we do obtain their permission to include their report within the financial statements. And the last slide we'd like to cover today is independence communications. So we are required to consider the services that we provide to CPS Energy. And the objective there is to make sure that they don't bear on or impair our independence with the organization. So we do provide 2 audit-related services. This is access to KPMG's accounting research online portal. This is a portal that aggregates publicly available information such as accounting standards, auditing standards, other types of research that may be helpful to management as they prepare the financial statements, as well as access to KPMG's custom learning portal. So through this portal, we do provide access to various web-based trainings, seminars, other types of lectures, again, with a focus on the accounting and finance department. So in providing these services, we don't believe they impair our independence. They don't contravene any of the 4 overarching principles of auditor independence, which is acting in a management position, placing ourselves in a position to audit our own work, in those. And the rest of the slides have been provided as a pre-read within your package. So with that, we're more than happy to stand for any questions the trustees may have.
Are there any questions by our fellow trustees? There is a question. Dr. Brunson Romero.
Yeah, on slide 12, under the audit findings, when you list, well, when it says significant assumptions used that have a high degree of subjectivity, and then you list several assumptions. Are you saying those have a high degree of subjectivity? Because then you conclude that everything seems fine, so those just typically have a high degree of subjectivity?
Sure, and so your question is specifically on the pension or the OPEB? Yes, so those frequently can.
It was slide 12.
Slide 12, yeah.
Slide 12. Net pension. Okay, so sure, and net pension can have a number of assumptions, and judgments that go into it, such as developing the discount rate, the expected return on plan assets. Typically, that management develops those in conjunction with their qualified expert, in this case, an outside actuary. So we do consider those to have a judgment element to them, but yes, we are concluding that those judgments were appropriate and that the resulting accounting impacts are appropriately reflected within the financial statements.
Mr. Steen has a question.
I think that that our booklets, the numbers are off. Maybe that confused you when you were asking them to put up a certain slide.
No, I think I asked for 12 then.
But
They
it,
didn't have 12, but now they do.
but it's 13 in our book. So. Right. I wanted to look at, in my book, what is slide 17?
Sure.
Audit and professional services fees. All right, well, that one's synced up. So I noticed that your fee has been reduced. The 20, huh? Well, you say it's gone up? Right, well, I'm looking at the first line.
That's right, the base audit fees went down.
Yeah.
Pardon me? I'm trying to figure this out.
Yes, I'm looking at the first line, and if you let me finish, Mr. Garza, I'm looking at the CPS Energy financial statement audit, whatever, the top line, the highest number.
Yes, sir, that's right.
All right, and so that's gone down.
That's right.
And so we're pleased with that. And what I wanted to ask you is that because of your increased familiarity?
That's right. That's right. So when we, part of the proposal process, we had increased fees in year one due to the increased hours we expect, right? Because we've never audited CPS before. So that's right. So year two includes efficiency. So we passed those efficiencies in our audit down to CPS Energy, which resulted in the reduced fees. Just to give you an idea, we had about a 22% decrease in audit hours this year in our second year under audit. So it was great news all around. We expected those hours to go down because of the efficiency in our audit and overall approach. And so, yes, that was our commitment to the company, that we would pass those savings on to you as we became more efficient.
So we appreciate that. And then I wanted to ask you, and we've had this dialogue in previous years when we had COVID and you couldn't spend as much time on site. What happened this time in terms of remote versus on-site in terms of your activities?
Yeah, so more of the same. We did bring in Mackenzie. She is based here in San Antonio. Our local staff is based in San Antonio. I am not a San Antonian. I'm in Albuquerque, but our staff is located in San Antonio. So our subcontractor also has staff here in San Antonio. So they met frequently at our KPMG offices here and worked together very well. And we continue to work well with the audit, finance, and accounting groups to continue on our journey through an efficient audit. So we had frequent meetings several times a week, and continued on as we did in year one.
So you kind of went back to the way you were doing things pre-COVID in terms of face-to-face contact? And
not pre-COVID, not quite there yet. As many companies are taking that journey, trying to get folks back into the office, we continue to work on that journey, but we did have local resources here that worked more efficiently and better together, face-to-face. But yeah, not entirely back into the office and back to our client sites yet.
And then the gentleman that helped, the local gentleman, can you address us and tell us your thoughts?
Yes. Hi, thank you. Chris Carmona, audit partner at Shriver Carmona CPAs. We had two of our best team members team up with KPMG, Jordan Galbraith and Richard Martinez. So it's really, they're the ones who really made this possible this year with the great work that they did with the KPMG team. So we were not necessarily on site. And I guess with CPS, right? I think that's with CPS Energy, with the team here on site, but we did meet frequently with the KPMG team in their office, which really led to more efficiencies in the audit and really building on our team's ability, which is I think part of this partnership and allowing us. So we are really grateful for this opportunity to team up with such a firm that's known throughout the world, and for their not only training, but their ability to just provide quality audits. So the fact that our team members were able to be at their office with them really provided a different sense of quality audits, right? A much higher level. And this is what we really appreciate about this opportunity to team up. So thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Is there any? I think we have an additional question by Trustee Dr. Mackey.
Yes, I want to thank you all for doing a great job in auditing our books. I know this is the second time. Last Wednesday, we had an opportunity to go over with the Audit Finance Committee. We had some questions then, and you resolved some questions that we've had right there. And so, but you did a great job and reduced our fee, and we've talked about that last week. So, and the biggest turnaround, I think, is the federal programs compliance requirements and all of that kind of stuff. But y'all did a great job, and we appreciate y'all working together to present this to us today. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments by trustees or the mayor? Okay, on that note, I again want to thank Ms. Caroline Garcia and the KPMG team, along with Carmona team as well. Thank you so much. And that, go ahead, Mayor. Okay. Okay. So on that note, if we can move to item number 9, which is the 2024 performance measures discussed by Dr. John Soltall. I'm sorry if I did not enunciate your last name correctly.
It's
You
all
may
right.
proceed.
The first 12 years of my life, I mispronounced it as well, so everyone gets a really long pass.
It's like being in San Antonio. I think half of the Hispanic names are mispronounced as well.
So thank you all, Chair, Trustees, and Mayor, for allowing me
How
to.
do you pronounce it just officially?
Soltau.
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 I'll get it right next time.
So thank you for having me back today to continue our discussion around our performance measures, specifically as we look to 2024 and see how we can make sure that it's aligned and still performing in the direction to help us support our customers and overall excellence. So today, the main thing that we want to highlight is some of the proposed enhancements of the program based upon some guidance from the Operation and Oversight Committee that we've received, which we greatly appreciate, in preparation for what I believe is a special board meeting in June, where we'll come hopefully to ultimate alignment. Our ultimate goal is to really make sure that we're providing value to our customers and our community, and there's 3 main points that I'm going to hit repeatedly today. Number 1 is that while the board is considering these enhancements, we are continuing to execute and report on our Tier 1 metrics as they are our program right now. So we are not taking our eye off that ball, and we're continuing to drive forward on those. The second key point is that really everything we're doing is to make sure that we're providing value to our customers and we're aligned strategically with where they expect us to go, both in the short term and the long term. And then finally, what we're really seeking from the board is feedback on what of our proposals resonate, what potentially are some gaps, and then hopefully eventually get some alignment on priority to help understand really where are we wanting to push everything forward. So as we start today, we just kind of want to highlight why performance measures are so important. The work we did last year to develop our mission values and our Vision 2027 really helped us understand where we are going over the next 5 years. And we see our performance measures as really making those objective and clear to show that we are actually achieving that success. Why it's really important to us as employees, it allows us a better understanding of what we need to be planning and executing against. It allows our customers more clarity around what they can expect from us, as well as the community to understand where their investment is actually going. So from a performance program standpoint, there's about 3 main things we really want to make sure that we achieve. Number 1, we want to make sure those measures are meaningful. Number 2, we want to make sure that they're aligned with our strategy and the direction we're going, and they should inform the decisions we make. And third, ultimately, they should be a way that we can actually measure success and show the progress we are making. We believe that the foundation that we had off from the Tier 1 metrics over the last decade is a solid foundation, but our enhancements today can even improve these more. So from a high level, what I'd like to highlight is why do we feel like there's a value in making these enhancements and change. First, customer expectations have changed. What used to be novel or fresh is now expected, and we need to reimagine what we are providing to our customers. The second is our industry is transforming. We have a number of major decisions from a strategic standpoint to make moving forward, and we need to really understand to make sure that we're aligned and driving in the right direction. And then third, the work done by Daymark and Gallup in the operational efficiency review highlighted some opportunities where we can improve, and we've incorporated those through all of our proposed enhancements today. So the 5 main enhancements I want to highlight, and we'll go in each one of these a little bit more detail. The first is just that we want to make sure that all of our measures are aligned with our strategic objectives. The second is that we want to continue and reaffirm our Tier 1 metrics and potentially some Tier 2s, but rebrand them as enterprise measures. The third is actually taking this year to develop what we're calling board or community measures that are really focused on long-term value to the community, and compared to our enterprise measures, which have a 1-year annual target, would probably be more focused on 5-year goals with annual milestones. The fourth is really aligning from a target standpoint, making sure that we're thinking about them holistically. And the fifth is making sure that we're aligned with this board on their expectations around reporting and updating. I will note again, one of my main key points is we are continuing our Tier 1 metrics, and we will continue to report those to the board while the board's considering these enhancements. So at a high level, these are our 5 main strategic objectives, and the main thing that we want to highlight here is by aligning our measures to it, it allows us to really quantify what success looks like and to show that we're moving towards them. So it helps take that down a little bit more of a precise level to actually measure that progress forward. This is something that when we did talk at the Ops and Oversight Committee, I think there was general agreement that this was a good program approach to take to make sure we had that alignment. The second component, really the second and third, is this idea of enterprise and board measures. So you might ask, well, why do we need the two? And I think of it from the standpoint of my car. My car, I have a dashboard that tells me how that car is running, whether it's being efficient and effective. I also have my GPS, which tells me, am I making progress towards where I'm going? And I think of these two sets of measures in the same way. The enterprise measures, they're based on industry standards, are continuation and reaffirmation of Tier 1 metrics, and they're really focused on, are we performing annually effective and efficiently? Compared-wise, the board of community measures, these are more something that is aimed at what is meaningful to the community. They're about how we are trying to change, and these would be really more aimed at probably 5-year targets because it's going to take some time, some investment, and some energy to get where we are going there. The important thing to note is that all of these are still important. We'll set strategic targets for all of them, and we'll continue to report on them. So it's not that one is more important than the other. They work together to make ultimately sure that we are getting where our customers are expecting us to go. So again, these are our enterprise measures, which is really somewhat of a rebranding of our Tier 1s. We have selected some potential Tier 2 metrics for consideration from the board. Again, here we're just asking the board to look at these, reaffirm that they are still applicable and meaningful, and prioritize to any degree where they might want to focus on a few compared to the others. So this is really the continuation of what our current program is. The new development, again, that measure that really shows us strategically where we're going are our proposed board measures. So let me kind of walk through what you're seeing here. So on the left-hand column, you see the strategic objectives, so we're just showing how it aligns to it. The middle section is our simple way of synthesizing some of the feedback that we've heard from the community from various forums about what's important to them, what are they ultimately looking for us to do. And then the right-hand column is really a quantifiable way that we could show and measure that performance. And the little green checks that you'll see throughout this presentation actually are showing things that align with that operational efficiency review that we had done. So the example being the first one, be resilient and restore power quickly during major events is something we're continually hearing. We lived at this the weekend. So our proposed measure could potentially be a Storm Katie, which is just basically average duration of customer experiences during various storms, to be able to track from one storm to the other to see how we perform. I'll note that when you look at these are just some potential possibilities. There are other ones that we might be missing. For example, something around non-base rate revenue, trying to shift our business model to that perspective. But what we're really, again, ask the board to see is from these things that we're proposing, which ones resonate, potentially where do we have gaps, and then help us actually narrow this down to probably something around 5 to 10 that we can really focus on and make progress, because the amount of energy, investment, and resources to achieve these is going to be fairly significant. We would note that as we are developing these, the intention would be that we would take this year to develop them out fully. We would actually bring in a third party to help us make sure that they are accurate and best practices, and we could be able to audit them moving forward. So our other element that we want to highlight as we look to enhance is really becoming a little bit more strategic around the targets we set. Mayor, I think you hit this well last month when you talked about how all of our targets are really interrelated with one another, and they depend upon each other, and there's influences and trade-offs. So on the left there, you see a number of different considerations that we all think about when we're doing this. And on the right, my little kind of donut, this is the way that we kind of think about how we set performance targets. We don't want to set them too low because if they're too low, they're not delivering on the value that our customers expect of us. Simultaneously, if we set them too high, they might pull other performance measures out of alignment because of the investment at the time or the implications of achieving that target. So you see there on the right, if you kind of think about just those 5 measures, we have solid targets all the way around. We can stay in that kind of happy spot. comparatively, if we were to maybe take something like a safety and say we want to be the top 1% in the nation, which is admirable on the surface, the amount of investment that it might take from a financial standpoint might actually negatively influence other measures, for example, our bond rating. So we'd really want to consider the implications of doing something like that on the other measures. The final enhancement that we're looking for is really to affirm with the board what their expectations are from a reporting and an updating standpoint. We want to make sure that this cadence is meaningful to the board, that we're providing transparency on how we're performing, while at the same time that we're not doing it so often that it really creates some noise or some confusion, specifically on those measures like we're proposing from the board, which really don't move from month to month. It's going to take a long time to see some of that progress going. So our general recommendation at this time is we will continue to report enterprise measures, or those tier ones like we were talking about, and we do that with the financial and accounts receivables like the board receives, and then quarterly we'd probably do a general presentation on our overall board measures and the overall performance of our program and organization. So again, I look forward to any feedback, specifically, hopefully, as we are going into the June special board meeting to align on these. Again, you see our 5 enhancements. Really looking forward to the board to understand what resonates, where do you potentially see some gaps, and then ultimately having a conversation, how do we narrow the focus on the things that are most important so we make sure that we can truly drive excellence. So with that, thank you very much. I'm open to any comments or questions.
Thank you so much, John. Great presentation. Does the board have any questions or comments? Mr. Steen?
So, Dr. Soltow, thanks for your presentation. I know you've been with CPS Energy since November 2019, about 3.5 years. Is that right?
Actually, I think I just hit 12 years. I started back in January of 2011.
Okay, well, I thought you started in November of 2019 based on something on the internet.
I think I took this role about 3.5 years.
All right. Well, anyway, with your expertise in enterprise planning and performance, you're an esteemed addition to our team. And I have 4 points today, and it won't take long to cover them. So I'd first ask if we please put up slide 6. So today you're focused on performance measures for fiscal year 2024. And I see you've noted twice that CPS Energy will keep on tracking Tier 1 metrics, or what you referred to at our last meeting as benchmarkable industry standards. And then right there at the bottom it says, continuing our Tier 1 metrics as the board is considering enhancements. So please put up slide 9. So now listed and identified with the note reference mark 1 are our 16 Tier 1 metrics. They're now grouped by strategic objective, and for some reason adherence to O&M budget and adherence to capital budget are combined, but all 16 are up there. So I'd like confirmation that in fact we're going to stick with our 16 Tier 1 metrics, and that the only changes being contemplated are: 1, the metrics might henceforth be formatted differently to align with strategic objectives, and 2, there could be enhancement through the addition of other metrics. So, Dr. Soltow, is what I stated correct?
So I would note that until the board directs me differently, I'll continue to report and track our Tier 1 metrics as that program is currently defined, but I will defer to the board on any direction that they want to provide at any point about how I change that.
All right, and Mr. Garza, your thoughts?
I think John hit the nail on the head. This board, if you all choose to reaffirm the metrics that we've been using, great. If we want to look at new ways to measure ourselves that reflect the future, that's great too. We serve at the pleasure of the board, and we will move in whatever direction the board suggests, even if that's just to keep doing what we're doing.
Thank you. And so my second point, please go to slide 13. Our new fiscal year began January 31st, so we're already 3 months or 1/4 of the way into it. And your slide 13 references an upcoming special board meeting, which I believe is scheduled for June 12th. Is that right, Ms. Carpenter? June 12th. Anyway, And where one of the action items is to set strategic targets, I believe that means, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we, the trustees, will be determining the Tier 1 metrics for fiscal year 2024, and we'll be doing that when we're getting close to halfway through the year. This strikes me as unusual. So, Dr. Soltow, considering your expertise in planning, would you comment on this?
So we have worked with the business areas and refined those targets that we have now.
I'm sorry, Mr. Soltau, we can't hear you. I'm sorry about that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Loud and clear.
So we actually have targets for the Tier 1s that we're working with business areas right now. There's always usually a little lag based on the end-of-year performance to validate all the targets and set them moving forward. So we can share that with the board before the June meeting.
I just want to, I'm afraid that there's some confusion being created. This is not a presentation requesting approval, and the Tier 1 metrics do not require board approval. I felt like your question asked, are we going to be asked to approve the metrics at June 12th? I just didn't want to leave you with a misimpression.
Well, that was a misimpression, because I was getting the impression that this board would approve the Tier 1 metrics.
There's no board approval required for Tier 1 metrics this year or any prior year that I could find, sir.
Yeah, ultimately, the conversations by this board, Trustee Steen, will factor into the metrics set for my scorecard through the Personnel Committee, which will be translated to, the performance measures for the entire organization. So it works, it's always worked that way.
Really quickly, clarify. That is how it appears. There is no tie between the two. The authority to set the CEO metrics has been delegated to the Personnel Committee. That is not a new process. That is how it has been done for the last 10 years. The management has set the Tier 1 metrics. It has never been approved by the board. The past chair directed that discussion through the Ops Oversight Committee. And so that is what we are continuing on right now. But we have, when I went back to look, there was no board approval of Tier 1 metrics. The board approval would be required. Sometimes there was discussion of Tier 1 metrics, but the only board approval was required if the CEO's performance in the CEO's metrics review resulted in an increase to the CEO's salary. The increase to the salary came to the board for approval.
Looking at this slide, and point 4 on there says, this is points for discussion at a June special Board of Trustees meeting, and number 4 says set strategic targets.
So I apologize for that confusion, Trustee Steen. That was not my intention for the approval portion of it. It was more probably around discussion, specifically as we develop the board measures, what those targets and goals would look like, because that is probably going to be a 5-year outlook. So I apologize for the confusion, and I take responsibility of that.
Thank you. Third, Dr. Soltow, at our last meeting on April 3rd, you heard me say that Tier 1 metrics need to be calibrated so that they drive changes, innovations, and improvements, as well as help CPS Energy focus its people and resources on what's important. To be effective, our metrics must be appropriately aspirational, challenging, and tough, and hitting the targets should mean our company is firing on all cylinders, that is, operating at the highest level. The alternative is slipping into mediocrity. And would you agree with what I just said, Dr. Soltow?
I would say generally that targets are important. As much as you decide what you need to measure, the target you set with the measure is equally important, which is why we consider a number of factors when it goes into play. I would highlight, though, that I would encourage no one to take a single metric and its performance by itself and isolate its performance, because there are trade-offs between all of them, and you really want to look at the suite overall of how you perform.
And recently we learned that our Tier 1 metrics for fiscal year 2023 were grim. In fact, CPS Energy only achieved 10 out of the 16 for a grade of 63 on what's often referred to as our report card. After our last board meeting, I heard from members of our community, particularly the business community, and they interpreted some of the responses to our dismal score to mean that the solution going forward should be to lower our targets. That is, not just dig in and try harder, but to actively lower expectations. And so, for example, here are 3 comments I received after our last meeting. Comment: because CPS Energy didn't meet its goals, it sounds like what they want to do is restate what success looks like. Another comment: if you reach your long-established goals, if you can't reach your long-established goals, you simply move the goalpost. And the third comment: if you cannot hit your financial and operational goals, you pivot to nebulous goals that are more subjective, more difficult to measure, and easier to meet. So, Mr. Garza, would you assure members of our community, particularly our business community, that you're not going to recommend lowering our Tier 1 metrics targets in response to last year's score of 63, but instead CPS Energy management is going to redouble its efforts to increase our score?
Trustee Steen, our performance last year was pretty much on par with last 5 years. You know, we always, no CEO who sat in this seat has achieved 100% of the goals. You have to pick and choose and make them, work together to achieve the outcomes for the community. So it has never come out of my mouth that we want to lower the standards of any of our metrics. I think the way we define success has to change and reflect the future rather than the past. That is the challenge that I'm putting before this board, but you have never heard out of my mouth that I want to lower anything.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. And then fourth and finally, this will be short, there are Tier 1 metrics where the bar needs raising. I'll mention 2 I brought up in past meetings: debt capitalization and enterprise senior bond ratings. In the interest of time, I'll not repeat my reasons for toughening CPS goals in these areas, but I'll be ready to do so at our June 12th special board meeting. Dr. Soltow, are you open to the idea of actually making targets for these 2 Tier 1 metrics more appropriately challenging?
Trustee Steen, I'm open to any feedback that the board can provide. Again, anytime that we're looking at targets, we think about them holistically and the trade-offs that they have. So I'm open for any more discussion that you'd like to have, or anyone else.
We have thank you very much for that feedback, Mr.
And that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. The mayor has the floor.
And I'll say my comments for a minute, but with all due respect, if we're going to have anonymous comments, criticism of CPS Energy being read into the minutes, this board and the public deserve to know who they came from. Otherwise, they're just mere opinions that have no bearing on the discussion.
Chairman, I would like to comment real quick. Since COVID and Winter Uri, the bar has been raised on the board's engagement, performance, and increased transparency. We're navigating market uncertainty, rapid technology and environment, and population. It is no longer sufficient for board members to simply show up to meetings, nod their heads in agreement, or abstain from fundamental reasons, or go home with actionable items. Our committee want and they desire tangible evidence that we're fulfilling the desired outcomes. Make sure that board meetings have meaningful discussions on strategic objectives, which is what Mr. Soltow just presented. By providing timely communication and information before and after meeting to a minimum, questioning staff recommendations, making assumptions, and probing questions, the ideal balance I would like to accomplish is a shared governance, a culture where both staff and board recognize that they are partners in stewarding the organization's mission, and such they are obligated to ask the right questions. In the increased reliance on digital technologies and up-to-date market information, as well as enhanced connectivity with our company suppliers and customers, may create agility and resilience with the successful implementation of many things that we're trying to accomplish, such as our ERP systems, community solar, and really expedite the implementation of our generation mix plan. Again, I want to encourage all trustees for public to provide their input, but more so that we continue to start resorting to the past and that we move forward to level set what we've already agreed to, most of us have agreed to moving forward through a process. And that process is input through committees. On that note, is there any additional questions or comments by our trustees? Trustee Romero.
Thank you. Okay. I'm also concerned about having comments from the public in the record about something that we're going to do, that there's that there's no evidence that we're going to do, and I know two people have already talked about that, but I wanted to ask you as well, because I feel like I missed something, and I don't think I did. On the Tier 1 metrics, did you ever talk to us about lowering the standards?
No.
Okay. And then in terms of raising the standards, I assume one of the things you would have to think about there is whether we're beyond the industry standard for certain metrics.
Yes, one of the considerations you have to make is diminishing returns. To go higher, is it really worthwhile on the ramifications of that? Would it really value our customers in a meaningful way? As well as just the natural business cycle of one year to the other. For example, sometimes our availability number changes just because certain plants have to take multiple outages one year compared to another. So not every single year you would necessarily see an increase in every single metric because of natural business cycles.
Okay, thank you. And then I wanted to talk about the proposed board measures, which we are also not voting on. I would just like to get a little clarification on these as to how they are then used. Once we adopt these, is it merely, not like that's not enough, but is it merely to inform the community, or are they used in other ways internally, and if so, how?
So I think it's both internally and.
We could barely hear you. I was about to say, if you could please
Any
speak into
better?
the mic. Yes.
All right. So I think they provide a number of benefits, both internally and externally. Externally, it allows us to communicate with our customers to say what they can actually, I'll kneel down a little, what they can actually expect from us and where they should see us making improvements. Internally, what it really does is help us know how to set our plans and execute when we have to make decisions. So for example, if we were to set a certain target around Storm Katie, just because that's one of the ones we mentioned, then we would know that a lot of our planning would really focus on some of our worst performing circuits in storm situations to drive plans to execute against that. So it both informs the public and our community where we are going, as well as helps inform our plans and helps us internally make decisions when we have to make trade-offs.
Okay, thank you. And then, because you asked for feedback on the proposed board measures, I'm going to give you some feedback, but I already did, and you presented this at our Operations Oversight Committee meeting with me and Trustee Steen, and I can see you already made some changes, and I appreciate that. Thank you. So just some stray comments that I have on this. Just on the operational evolution one, be reliable by decreasing the number of outages customers experience. I just want to make sure we're not putting in an uphill climb for us to say as the climate crisis gets worse and worse, that we're trying to deliver more and more that we just can't. I mean, to some extent, those storms are outpacing, I don't know, but it's something I think we should think about. If the storms are just outpacing our ability to respond to them, I just don't want to put us in a situation where we're fighting the climate crisis or trying to outpace the climate crisis, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I think the changes you made to the team culture, what customers value, I like the changes. I'm still not exactly sure what appropriate sized organization to serve our customers and ratio of customers to employees actually is getting at, so that would be one I just want to dig into a little bit more.
That is a benchmarkable number. It's, kind of number of customers, per number of employees per customer is the quantification. We've never used that as a measure here. But that is a benchmarkable number that tells us, are we low, are we high, are we about right? So we can have more conversations about that one.
Yeah, because then it's not just the number of employees, and I don't mean to say this in a mean way, like, oh, everybody needs to be more efficient, but it's the efficiency of the employees that we have. I do think some of the pieces, the support customers in most need of assistance may not be finalized until we get the RAC recommendations so that we can consider those. I think you're probably being conservative on which ones you give a green check to. And I like the green checks because that's showing we're listening to those outside consultants. I think some of these could have green checks that don't have them now. even if those consultants said we're already doing a good job on those. And then I guess the last thing I want to say, I'm just being a little sarcastic. I almost wish we had a performance measure for how we discuss performance measures. I don't want to be spending all our time discussing performance measures. I just think it's quicksand, and I've seen this at the place where I work. I think we're in a good place where you're giving us really good stuff to react to, and we're moving forward, but at some point, I think we have to say we're done, and we're not just in the business of every single time questioning these performance measures. So recognize you as the expert who does do this all the time, and thank you for all this.
I understand not everyone finds it as exciting as I do. But I think to your point, that is one of the values of getting alignment from the board to be consistent moving forward, because once they're consistent, we know what that is that we're aiming at, we can consistently execute against it. If it is continually changing, then it's not providing that value there. So I 100% agree that our intention is to make sure that we hear the feedback, we get alignment, and then you'll see hopefully less of me as we're executing against it and just are updating on the progress we're making.
Let me just add to that. We haven't done this in a while, and we've got 2 board members who have never been through the process of reviewing metrics. So we also have to get on a cadence of looking at these at least every 5 years, just to make sure we feel good about how we're measuring ourselves. So it is healthy for an organization at the board level to affirm or change or do whatever you want to do to the metrics so that it's a reflection of where we're heading, because they can get stale in a hurry as well.
I believe the mayor has further comments.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Soltow. I just have one question and then a statement that hopefully will be good feedback. Can we go to slide 9 on the enterprise measures? So briefly, could you just walk me through what gas system growth accounts for?
So I'll take my first shot, and then if I say it wrong, I hope my friend will step in here. But basically, it's just the number of customers that we're increasing every year, year over year, supporting through the gas system.
And that's a perfect example, Mayor, of a metric that needs to change. We used to incentivize new subdivision development, and we got feedback that maybe the time was to stop incentivizing new subdivision, gas service. So we moved away from that. But now I think a good example of gas system, of how to measure success in the gas system, is proactively making investments in infrastructure, knowing where the growth is going. So is our pipeline being extended in a way that meets the development where it needs to be? Less of a per customer measure and more of a, are we building the right number of miles of pipeline a year to meet that growth? So that's a perfect example of one that's gotten stale, that we have, reaction to, a lot of which is negative. When they see gas system growth and people want us to move away from natural gas, they react viscerally to that. But we have an obligation to serve. So that's really what we need to be measuring there.
I don't know if you want to add to that. That sounded understandable to me. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that goes into what I wanted to comment on. And, I want to make sure that as we consider the RAC discussion that just took place in our adoption of the P2 scenario, one of the things that's important to me that I don't see yet reflected in these metrics is how are we doing in progress towards that? Operationally, implementing P2 is a day-to-day annual decision-making process. And so figuring out how we can reflect that within the enterprise or the board metrics would be helpful. If it's already there, show me where it's there.
Go to the next slide. Yeah, it would be, no, it's over here. Progress towards CAP goals, wherever that is.
Third one, yeah. Right, but it goes under for customers' value, provide sustainable power.
Okay, well, that's the one I'm very interested in, because in my view, in terms of the overall performance of the utility, how we drive toward that target, and what I'm interested in is how we reliably and affordably accelerate towards that target. And we've talked about, depending on how those investments are made, I forget the numbers now, but our P2 scenario implemented might look a lot closer to the, whatever it was, P9 or something like that. And that's the goal. You know, if we can implement and hit our targets reliably, affordably for our 2050 goal, before that, we should be moving in that direction. So some way to measure that outcome, those outcomes on an annual operational basis is what I would be interested in. And that implicates our ability to go up and get, you know, federal assistance through the IRA, being able to, you know, move people more towards, you know, solar and other renewable generation options as well. So those are my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Appreciate the feedback, and we can call that out more clearly moving forward.
Any additional comments by our fellow trustees? All righty, well then, thank you very much for a great presentation. We look forward to working with each other and building upon what we already have, and so thank you so much. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and move to agenda item number 10. Ms. Ramirez, please take the board into executive session.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, this board is going to recess into an executive session to discuss matters that have been duly posted under several provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including attorney-client privilege. We have several matters regarding consultation concerning attorney-client matters under Section 551.071, as well as personnel matters under Section 551.074. At the conclusion of executive session, the board will reconvene in open session, continue the meeting. It's 2:15 p.m. as we go into executive session.
Okay, we have reconvened to open session. Ms. Ramirez, please bring the board back from executive session.
Yes, ma'am. It is 3:19 PM and the board has concluded executive session. I can confirm that there were no votes taken and no matters were discussed that were not part of the posted agenda. We do have a quorum. All members, with the exception of the mayor, are present.
Thank you. We will now move to agenda item number 11, CEO review. The CEO performance review and goals meeting
Ma'am,
took place.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do want to note that Trustee Mackey is still present at the meeting, but is not at the dais, so I'm going to say that he is not present right now, and I will note when he returns.
Thank you. So again, Dr. Mackey has not left the building. He's just has stepped away. Just for the record, he is still participating in this today's meeting. Again, item number 11, CEO performance review and goals. A meeting took place on April the 19th, and his performance review took place. On that note, I just want to make a couple of comments. And so, in addition, Mr. Rudy Garza, in addition to completing the strategic objectives laid before him by the Personnel Committee and meeting approximately 2/3 of the organization Tier 1 metrics, as noted above, and has been noted many times in our board meetings, Mr. Garza took action to ensure systems weatherization to address performance shortfalls visible in 2021 without waiting for regulatory program compliance to be finalized. He guided his team to respond to years-long supply chain challenges by increasing contracted supplier and order volumes, as well as seeking technical solutions to continue addressing growing customer demand. Further, the CPS Energy team increased contracting with local, small, and diverse suppliers 35% from 2021 to 2022 by debundling requests for proposals, increasing vendor outreach, and hosting a pre-RFP events to engage new vendors and support them through the bid process. To initiate the multi-year program to replacing aging IT infrastructure, he established an enterprise program with executive oversight and board engagement through the Technology and Resilience Committee. Additionally, Mr. Rudy Garza ensured the staff improve customer outreach to communicate solutions and increase overall engagement. In the face of substantial headwinds brought on by the global pandemic, from account receivable issues to supply chain shortage to workforce disruption, Mr. Garza has stabilized the organization, improved his communication and engagement with the community, and prepared CPS Energy for industry and technology transition. I want to congratulate him on his conclusion of a first full year as CEO under extreme constraints, as his performance has met expectations. And we look forward to working with him in 2024. And I further want to add there will be no change in base pay, basically his annual salary. If there's any further comments by my fellow trustees, please feel free. Guess there's no additional comments. So again, want to thank everybody who participated in the review of the CEO. And I want to go ahead and move, Mr. Garza, is there anything you want to add?
I appreciate the review process that the board undertook to give me feedback, and I just remain committed to executing the direction that the board has given me to, keep this company moving, in the right direction. So a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of opportunity to get better, but I just want to thank our employees who, I'm just a representative of the work that they're doing, and I really appreciate them and you all for being part of the team.
Thank you again, Rudy. If there's no further questions or comments by my colleagues, we'll now move to item number 13. Ms. Ramirez, can you please review the action items? Sorry. I'm 12, sorry. Sorry. CEO recognition. I'm skipping over it.
All right, I want to invite in the members of our volunteer coalition from our Kids Fish event. The CPS Energy team members are some of the, biggest hearted volunteers in our community. Not only do we work hard to keep folks' power and gas on and flowing, but on their own time, they're coming out on weekends to support the community in all kinds of ways. I was able to participate in the 24th annual Kidfish event that was hosted down at our Calaveras Lake on April 1st. It took 165 volunteers to put that wonderful event on. There were 35 kids aged 13 to 18 from Boysville, which is a wonderful organization in this community. I want to specifically point out organizers Karen Saunders, Brandy Rodriguez, my tocayo, Rudy Guerrero. Is Rudy here? Where is he? Nope, not here today. Oh, where is he? There he is. Okay. All right. Okay, he's here somewhere. And Melda Rivera, of course, who kind of runs all of our special events. I also want to take time to thank our partners in the Texas Parks and Wildlife who help us to actually, they bring the fish in to a netted area of the lake so the kids have a really great experience catching one. Actually, they get tired of catching fish before the fish stop biting. And of course, the Fin Addict Angler Foundation, who did all the outfitting, all the fishing rods and the bait and stuff that we need. IBW Local 500, we actually had Ron Ramsey, our local 500 president, out there cooking burgers and hot dogs, and Boy Scout Troop 52, who did the color guard that morning. It takes a lot of effort from people on their personal time to put events like this on, and today we celebrate you. Congratulations on a wonderful event. Thank you for including me and for putting me in a position to not mess it up in any way. But you all do great work, and today we celebrate you, so congratulations.
Okay, that concludes Mr. Rudy Garza's speaking points. And again, great organization, great event. And so thank you for again, supporting our community in that fashion. We'll go ahead and move. If there's no board questions or comments, if you can go ahead, Ms. Ramirez, now go ahead and move us to item number 13. If you could please review the action items.
I have no action items that I took from this meeting unless someone recalls one. I did want to let you know that all of the prior action items that we've noted for the last two meetings have been complete. One item that was open will be put on the May agenda. That was a request from Trustee Steen and Vice Chair Romero. So that will be, I'm saying it's complete, but it will be presented in May.
Okey-doke. All my colleagues, I really want to thank them all individually. They all bring very specific skill sets and feedback, and this is what makes a board wonderful. And so again, we are again celebrating Fiesta, so happy Fiesta to everybody out there. Be safe. Again, use VIA, Park and Ride. It's the best way to celebrate Fiesta. Again, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. The meeting is adjourned. The time is 3:28. And again, happy Fiesta to everybody.